what is it about mindfulness that allows those barriers to be deconstructed and let yourself have a heightened awareness, I suppose, of your functioning?
To have the experience almost. Well, the research has found that there's quite a shift between, and they've mapped this, between the efforting in a mindfulness practice and the effortless state. And they call it a curvilinear relationship, in a sense where they've got people who are beginners, and so they're concentrating hard to try and make sure that they're mindful. Mm-hmm. And so, they found when they tested them, hooked them all up, that they were actually high in concentration, it looked like. And then you got these masters, people who've done it a lot longer, who weren't demonstrating heightened concentration. And so, that's a little bit unusual, but they were still demonstrating the blissful or the still or the peaceful experience, but just with no effort at that point. In other words, they'd transcended that, like someone like a masterful musician who's now in that flow and in that state.
Is it similar to say like that whole thing of it's like riding a bike you never forget, but the first occasions when you do it, like if you're like a young person, you've got the training wheels on, it is a very nerve-wracking experience, and you're focusing on the balancing, and every time your training wheels or your legs hit the ground, it's a jarring moment. But then once you get the hang of it, it is like a second nature in that way.
Yeah, and I think now to look at what we're being offered in the psychological paradigm, you could say, of well-being, is still, to me, in that training wheel thing. It's still managing to stay on the bike and not fall off. And, well-being and resilience is about, coping with situations and making sure you don't fall off, which I believe is critical. Everybody would wish, who's not sociopathic, would wish that a human being doesn't fall off their metaphorical psychological bike, right? That they would cope and not crash and hurt themselves. But man, you can also coast. You can also go down the hill and just it be effortless. And to me, that's where typically the mental health conversation does stop. And I feel there's a kind of like a pause or a gap, and then the spiritual or religious conversation starts. And when I say that, I'm talking about well, perhaps the right word, the top end, but the mystical end, which is the experience of someone actually having an experience. I think that's the critical bit, and that's when the music starts to really play. In that next step, and perhaps we can look at this in our next conversation as well, I really want to explore just how we can translate the insights, the input from the religious or spiritual traditions, and perhaps when mindfulness came through some of the Buddhist psychology and its inquiry into the enlightened state, which some people have also described as simply the natural resting state of a human being. And like that, to me, that's appetizing. Like you can present that in a way that's like human and mainstream and normal, and it's not kind of belief laden. I think if it's possible that the psychology can expand its paradigm to have a well-being construct that is effortless and at ease, then we're not just in the coping resilience model. We're in the almost, I can access a place beyond that I can rest in, and things can come and go in that place. But there's some level of untouchability. It doesn't mean I won't have normal human response or reaction or thought or feeling, but it's occurring within a much bigger context, a meta-awareness, if you like. And to me, that's the foundation of the well-being. And then to live from that place, create from that place, contribute from that place, to me, that's extraordinary. And this is the potential of a human being. And I think the mental health conversation, we need to go there.
And net benefit to everybody who interacts with that or who is impacted by that.
Absolutely. So it's a kind of a truth inquiry, but ultimately, as we get in connection to it, it then becomes like a love inquiry. It makes a difference to the world.